Yes, I am recording it. Okay. Sharing screen. Awesome. All right, everybody can see the screen. We're all good?
We can see
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome, great. Can you see my little Zoom blurb in the top right of the screen? Or is it just the presentation?
It's just the presentation.
Okay, cool. So Zoom keeps its UI out of the way. That's nice. All right, so how to apply to jobs and internships, a crash course in starting the interview process. Topics we'll be covering today in specific are this idea of DYR, do your research, how to reach out to recruiters, the importance of making the choice to find the little guy, how to master the cold call, the value in going to seek unlikely sources of experience. And at the end, we'll be covering what to have prepared prior to applying, just the essentials of all the individual items you need, which will bridge into our next crash courses. So the first and most important thing, I think, in applying to any job or position or project team even, this is something that's broadly applicable for joining anything you're interested in, is you got to do your research. DYR, remember that. So that involves maybe look up the company's website and social media. Find recent news articles they have. If the website has a news page on it, read that up. If you can find something just online on like Google News, or if you have industry newsletters you read, see anything about that company, which may be the reason you're interested in it in the first place, and then referencing that down the line, maybe in your interviews or your cover letters, or just when initially reaching out via email or on LinkedIn, is going to be super useful, because it shows the person you're talking to that not only are you spending the time to do your research, which they'll see and appreciate, and they're like, this person who does a thorough job, it also shows you care about the company's future, which is really important to getting the people to like you. And if they like you, they'll hire you, and they'll at least continue talking with you somewhere. Another thing to do is find out who you're talking to directly. If you're reaching out to somebody on LinkedIn, or you got a contact card from a career fair and you're messaging back to the person you talked with, spend that time to look them up and figure out who they are. Find maybe what their background is. Are they an electrical engineer? Where have they worked before? How long have they been with that company? Have they worked in other positions there? Find out what you can about that, and then you can maybe reference that a little. Again, it'll at the very least give you a good idea of who you're talking to. And another really good one that I've found in the past that was very helpful to me was locating the company's mission statement, and then catering to that in a cover letter, and saying like, I see you, I really value integrity and ethics in the workplace, and I admire that your company puts such a big focus on that. That can be something that'll really stand out to them, because they're saying, this person is an instant fit for the kind of culture we have. A really big thing that recruiters are going to be looking for is, how do you fit within the culture? They're not just saying, oh, can you get it done? That's just half the battle. As somebody who recently got 7 people to join my senior design team, something really big I'm looking at is, do I want to work with this person, and will they work well with me and all the others on the team? Let alone do they have the technical skills? Especially if you're going for an internship, it's almost more important that you show that you're a good fit as a person than having the skills. A lot of companies, when you're an intern, they're going to know you don't have a crazy amount of skills. You're not going to have 10 years of industry experience. They're looking a lot into just who you are, and are you somebody worth developing a relationship with as you continue to gain skills. So yeah, a big thing, once you've done your research, then reach out to the recruiters. Ways you can do that. LinkedIn is a phenomenal platform for finding people in the companies you want to work at. You can reach out to the recruiters directly, which is always a good choice. You should do that. And then on top of that, if you can find the senior manager for the specific team you want to join, if that's applicable, or somebody from San Jose State who works for that company, and you can maybe get a reference from or talk to them about the company for just learn more, maybe they won't hire you, but just getting more information is always good. LinkedIn is a fantastic resource. You can go to a company's LinkedIn page and see a lot of the employees who work there. And then personally, use your network. Anybody you know at the company, or anybody in your network who might know somebody at the company or have a contact, leverage that. That's a great thing. That's the point of having and developing a network, is for this kind of interaction. And remember, the biggest thing here is you gotta take the first step. You have to reach out directly to people. Don't worry about, oh, they might say no, or have fears about getting rejected. Give them the opportunity to even say yes to begin with, right? You'll be surprised by how interested a lot of people are in you once you just directly reach out to them. Also, thanks to Stephanie here in the meeting for the awesome animations and transitions on these slides. Loving them. So another thing, it can be really intimidating and difficult to apply to like the big companies that we think about and that have big recruitment efforts like Lockheed or Boeing or NASA. You can have, for one internship position, you might have 150 plus people applying to just that thing. Maybe then, instead of working harder, work smarter. Find startups in an industry you're really excited about. This may also allow you to get a really tailored thing. Boeing, a lot of times when you do internships at these big companies, you're going to be pretty much getting a general engineering internship. I did one at Raytheon, and I didn't even know what team I was on or really what sector I was going into until a couple of days after I started the internship. They just kind of put me somewhere. But a prior internship I had at a small drone startup, I knew exactly what I was doing going in, and I was able to really find something that I wanted. And the smaller the company is, it's a lot less likely that you'll be facing fierce competition. So you have a much better chance of getting in too. You might also find that it's an easier application process and easier, just more enjoyable effort in general. Smaller companies, they tend to be friendlier and less rigid with the bureaucracy. A lot of them won't even have proper internship programs. You'll say like they'll be excited just to have interns to begin with. I've ran into that a few times actually. One of my 3 internships I've had was that exact situation. I was the first intern ever, and they were just really stoked to be starting that sort of a thing, And another big thing, when I had my internship at Raytheon, I did one thing the whole summer. Not even just one position or one role. I had one project, one task I did just the whole summer. My 2 prior internships, which were at smaller companies, one of them was a startup, one of them was an established but small boutique engineering firm. I got a really good chance to wear a lot of different hats. They don't have the manpower for everybody to just be working on one thing. So you get to say, hey, can I learn a little bit about this or that? And small companies, they're going to need you to do that. And they're going to want you to do that, right? So it's a really good way to build your resume, is find the little guy. And then maybe try the big guy and the big name one that'll look awesome later on. And a big thing here that I think puts you a step above other people in the application process and getting started and reaching out is being able to master the art of the cold call. This is a really big one in my experience. And it has directly, being good at just that one skill has directly gotten me interviews and even an internship. And I'm not saying just cold application on the internet. I'm saying going on, researching online, finding the email of, I did this once, the CEO of the company that I wanted to go and work and get an internship at, directly reaching out to them and out of nowhere. There was no job application online, just saying, hey, I would love to work with you guys. Do you have anything available? In essence, biggest things for how to master the cold call: come prepared. Number one thing you want to do here is have a really good sense of what you're going into. Taking some of the previous information that we have in the slides, like doing your research is a fundamental part of this, right? We keep coming back to do your research is so important. Finding out about the company's future. One of the favorite things, right? Finding those news articles about the company and what they're doing. Because by talking about stuff that they're working on, you're going to make that person excited, especially if you're talking like a CEO or like a senior engineer in the company. If you reference the stuff they're working on and that they've had successes in, that's going to trigger positive emotions in their head, which is they're going to then associate with you just based on how human psychology works. And start strong. Don't be afraid to display all your strongest assets right from the get-go. With a cold call, you're in a hard situation, so you got to throw everything you have at it from the start. You know, take your time crafting that email, 3-4 hours if you have to. After that, it's going to get a lot easier, but you know, if you can make as good of a first impression as possible, that's critical. And continue calling. Cold calls aren't always successful on the first try. You got to just keep going and going and going. I had one where I had a company I was applying to back my sophomore year, where I reached out to them 3 times and got nothing. And I replied a 4th time, and somebody was saying, basically just because of the passion that I was showing and continually reaching out, they said they gave me a chance, you know, and I'm not sure exactly why they did that. But from what I can gather and my experience in hiring people for my senior project team is I had somebody do that with me. I wasn't really interested in them at first because of their resume, but they reached out again and again and again. And I was like, this person shows the dedication and passion that I need. And I can teach them the skills going forward, right? We can work with that. They've got the base underlying of what a good employee is. Also, people's moods change. If you apply to somebody on one day and you cold call them on one day, maybe they're in a bad mood. But if you apply to them a week later, maybe they're in a really good mood and they're going to say, you know what, I will take the chance on that person. So don't get disheartened when you don't hear back from a first, second, or third cold call. And if you're worried maybe about your resume not having enough, a lot of people in college don't have their internships or jobs yet. Don't have any internships or jobs yet, and they're worried their resume doesn't show a lot. And it can be harder to get those jobs and internships without that. Fantastic thing you can do in college, reach out to professors and instructors and establish meaningful relationships with them. See if they're doing any research projects or have anything that you can join in academically. Those are fantastic opportunities to get some real honest engineering experience that will look really good to companies. Companies, especially when you're in college, you're looking for internships, they love seeing academic experience. That's definitely a big plus for them. Their friend upperclassmen too. If you can get on a senior project team, I did this my sophomore year. I was a support member on the Sharp rocketry project. And that allowed me to get an idea of the systems engineering of projects. And I was able to, you know, talk about that at a later date in an interview to answer a question. And biggest one, joining clubs. In aerospace, we have SEDS, we have Cubed, we have Design, Build, Fly, AIAA's drone, Ares Drone Project, Rocket Club. And I think there's one more. And other clubs that are doing projects right here, right now, that are going to be a fantastic opportunity for everybody to go and build their resume up with. And my favorite, actually, conferences and internship career fairs that are interesting to you. I get a lot of value out of that. I've gone to meetings out in San Francisco, San Jose, conventions in Oakland, just for aerospace, big, small, whatever. You get to meet people in the industry. You get to talk to people who can give you more advice. And also, it'll help you stay up to date on what you're interested in. Also, everybody there's going to be a nerd in aerospace, so big plus, right? All right, so those are all the tips and tricks and, you know, the general strategies you need, but here's the actual meat and bones of what you're going to want to have prepared prior to applying. Updated LinkedIn profile. It's a big one. Recruiters absolutely instantly look at your LinkedIn if they're interested in you. If you have a really shoddy LinkedIn, that's not going to help you. It may not hurt you too much, to be honest, but if you have a really good LinkedIn that's sharp, that's well formatted, that's going to be really impressive to anybody looking at you. especially for internships and jobs straight out of college. And this is the most important thing, have an up-to-date, carefully reviewed resume that's catered to the position you're applying for, right? Do your research to know what you're applying for. And in fact, that's so important that our next meeting will be focused entirely on how to make that resume. A cover letter. Cover letters, I've heard a lot of recruiters say they're not really necessary anymore and they don't even look at them. If it doesn't say that they don't look at it, so if they're ambiguous about it or they say they want it, that's a really big thing to nail down and spend a good amount of time on. That's an opportunity to really introduce yourself and say, your resume, here's what I know, here's what I've done. And then your cover letter can say, here's who I am as a person, because again, when they were hiring you, it's two parts. Your ability as a worker and your sociability as a worker, how much you're going to mesh with the team. The most brilliant engineer in the world isn't going to get hired if everybody just likes working with them. Cover letter is a great opportunity to introduce yourself. References, if you've got them, references are fantastic, absolutely fantastic. If you got a relevant reference for the job, maybe within the company or from a previous place you've worked at, and you can get them to send a reference letter. My first internship, I got my boss to write a reference letter for me, and I know that's been very helpful going forward. But you can, it may not always be relevant if you have a reference, but if you can, great option. Portfolio is also a good option if you have done a lot of projects. You want to display those, like pictures of the different things you've created. Maybe you do, as a hobby, you build drones, and you've built like a half dozen of them. Doing a little portfolio where you got a page for each drone, just kind of showing it off and talking a little about it, can be a really useful thing to supplement with your resume. And big thing, just have an open mind. If you have a positive attitude in this whole process at all times and an open mind, and you incorporate that mindset into all your writing and all of your interactions, you're gonna, wow, I just lost my train of thought. That's gonna just really positively influence how your how your communications are perceived by the person you're talking to. So yeah, that was just kind of a brief crash course, a lot of information, short amount of time on how to apply to jobs and get started on the interview process. And as I mentioned before, we're going to have more to come. We've got 3 more in this series over the next couple of weeks. Next Tuesday, we've got the resume building workshop, which is going to help you get into the meat and bones of writing the resumes. We're going to have some time to discuss what should go in the resume, have you guys work and edit each other's resumes. We'll have officers there who are going to be critiquing them and going over everybody's resume one by one. This will be a super helpful workshop. We do it every year, so we have experience running it. And then we'll have time to have you guys revise those resumes, and we can maybe edit them again based on where we're at. I really, really, really recommend having some rough draft of your resume done beforehand so we can get really into the polishing of it, That's where we're going to be able to help you guys the most. After that, next Thursday, we're going to be doing mock interviews. Internship season is happening right as we speak. So we want to get you guys ready to go in those interviews that are going to be happening in the next few weeks as soon as we can. That'll involve quite a few of the officers. We'll be talking with you guys all one-on-one. We'll have scripts set up so you guys will have some sort of idea of what you're following and give you a really good understanding of what you can expect in mock interviews and tips that'll make them go a lot better than they have in the past. And then our final one on Tuesday, not next week, but the week after, the 21st, Gordon, one of our officers, will be showing everybody how to build a personal website, which is something that is becoming really, really useful to have recently. So yeah, and those all be the same time, same place, Zoom, 3 p.m. on each day mentioned. So yeah, that concludes the crash course on how to apply to jobs and internships. Thanks, guys. And now I'm going to open the floor up to you. You guys have any questions? We've still got, yeah, I want to take the first 30 minutes there to just do the lecture. And now we got the remaining 30 minutes to address whatever you guys are interested in. So let's go. I'm open to everything.
I have a question.
Sure.
Okay, so when you want to reach out to somebody from a company, like, but you don't have any contacts in that company, and like on LinkedIn, they don't really have anywhere where you can reach out to them except for like the messages, which not a lot of people check their LinkedIn regularly. Like, how would you go about finding the information you need to contact that person?
Well, so there's a lot of different ways you can do it. A good Google search turns up a lot for me usually. I do understand what you're saying about LinkedIn, though. I've ran into that in a couple cases where companies won't really have anybody on LinkedIn, maybe, especially the smaller ones. If the company has a website, try that. If you go on Google and you look up the person's name for the recruiter, or you type in recruiter and then the company name, just like the word recruiter and then the company's name. A lot of times that'll come up with something. They just give you a name, you won't necessarily have all the information for every single time, but you're going to do that research to try to get it. And that's why in doing your research, there's multiple avenues that you're pursuing. Okay, you can't find out about the person you're talking to, but maybe you can still find out recent news about the company. I'm sure you can. Or you can find the company's mission statement. Do as much as you can. Some companies won't have a mission statement, for example, but maybe you can still find out who you're talking to and what the recent developments in the company are, right?
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a question. So you recommended looking or reaching out to a lot of smaller companies. That seems like a good idea. But how do you find them? If they're big or if they're on the news often, that's easier to find them. But I imagine most small, especially startup companies, don't have any sort of coverage at all. So how have you found those small companies, and how would you recommend going and finding them?
This one, the bottom one. That's it. That's exactly where I get it from. So I maybe should have incorporated this in the presentation. It's just an introduction and a bit of background on myself. So as I mentioned, I had 3 prior internships. The first one, which I had in the summer between my freshman and sophomore years, was at a small boutique engineering firm that's been around for 40 years, company size like 30 to 50 people. They're actually on a slightly larger phase because of a big project, so they'd hired some new help. And I got to be part of that. The second company was this last spring at a small drone startup. I was employee number 15. And the third one was at Raytheon over this last summer here. I just finished that a couple of weeks ago. That first one happened for the weirdest reason. So I was going to Diablo Valley Community College at that time, and I happened just to be walking to class one day, and I noticed out in the engineering quad there that there was a big old conference. There was a lot of companies, and it was oriented about engineering positions. And I drove back home, put on a suit, came back out. Now, pretty much everybody there was wearing, like, at best business casual. By dressing up in that suit and having a folder with all my resumes already created, because I keep my resume fairly up to date just in general, even if I'm not applying, because you never know when it's going to be handy. A good reference, a rule of thumb for that is just apply it as you go. Whenever you do a project or complete something cool, just add it to your resume right then and there, And I talked to a bunch of the different positions there, talked to people who I was interested in, and none of them got back to me for like 2 months. But then eventually one of them said, "Hey, we'd be interested in having you do this." And I said, "Yeah, so we want you to be a line worker, being like a mechanic." And I was like, that's no, we don't. Actually, what I said was, okay, actually, I was interested in if you guys have an internship position. Turns out somebody else in the company was interested in, was an ex-professor and was interested in having an intern for the first time at the company. And that's kind of how that works. So it was straight out of a career fair. The second one that I got at the drone startup was through AIAA. One of the members here was working at the company, and they mentioned they wanted some more flight testers. And so he reached out and I applied, interviewed, and rest is history. In fact, Zarina and Alex and Jordan and Marshall, all members of the club, as well as Ian Leutenegger. So 4 of our members of our club are currently working in that company. And I was number 5 at a point. And then Raytheon I got because my uncle worked there. So that wouldn't be really broadly applicable. Does that help kind of give you some background, answer your question, and then provide some more information as well?
Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
I would like to also add, using LinkedIn a lot is also a really good way of finding like those startups. A lot of time, like just like looking up some like, let's say like you have a bunch of like who are they, like part of your people in your network. You could just look up to see like where they worked in the past, and a lot of time people start off with startups, and that's a good way to expand your network in that way.
Oh, another thing I wanted to add, earlier this year, right about winter break, I was applying for another company, and how I'd learned about them actually is because I'm an avid news reader for the eVTOL industry. I have 3 different weekly newsletters and a monthly newsletter I follow, and I saw mention of this company and their product on just in that newsletter and a little blurb in that weekly email on one of them. I was like, wow, that sounds like a cool company. I looked into it a little more. I'm like, oh, they're not based too far from here, and they're pretty small. I bet you there's a good shot. And I happened to go on their website, find the CEO's email. So that's where I get a lot from. LinkedIn newsfeed and signing up for newsletters in the industry you're really interested in. That'll be a really good option for you too. Are there other questions or comments that I can help with here? Any questions you guys have about the application project process, problems you've ran into in the past that you are interested in hearing my opinion on, or the other officers' opinions on. We're here to advise as much as we can. Take this time to use us as much as you want. All right, well, this one was just going to be a little shorter one anyway. If there aren't any further questions going forward, I've covered, I think, about everything I can. Talked about the different things I've done in applying to jobs and my various experience and successes using a lot of these strategies that I've used. I think I've gotten, I don't apply much, but I just try to apply smart. I think out of the last 3 years, I've only actually applied to 20 different positions. I've gotten interviews for 7 of them and offers on 4 of them. I didn't take the 4th one because I already had a different one that was better at that time. But I think a big takeaway here is using these strategies and tips. I'm going to upload this onto the AIAA Discord and working on them, implementing them, maybe run some mock-ups, try companies you don't care about. That's where I developed a lot of my skills. I would go to career fairs and I would interview with companies that I would never going to work at, and I sucked and I failed, like some of them were really bad. I went up to a electronics company once and I pitched myself as a unicorn, a special breed of engineer who also wanted to go into management, which is not a special breed nor a unicorn. And I had nothing on my resume except for 1 internship at that time. So the guy looked at me like, what? But then I learned humility is a big part of that in applying and getting to know people in a professional sense. So I really encourage just doing half-ass, not, I mean, serious enough, you know, putting the effort into it, efforts with companies you don't care about so that you don't screw up the ones you do care about. You know, when I say I've only applied to 20, I mean 20 that I really cared about. I've probably interviewed at career fairs or done cold applications online to 50 more that I don't remember or don't matter to me, kind of a thing, right? If you're at a career fair and you say, I want to really apply to Boeing, there's a line of 40 people at the career fair is only 3 hours long. I'm going to waste half my time just in that line. Maybe don't go to Boeing that day. There's a lot of competition for that. Maybe instead go to the 10 other ones that nobody cares about that have nobody in line or just a few people in line. And you can crank out and get a bunch of skills there, right? So that then later you go to the next career fair you see where there's Boeing with that huge line, and you know, all right, I'm just going to go to them. It's been my whole time, but I'm ready. Preparation, doing your research, you know, your homework. That's a big thing. And on that, I'm going to conclude the meeting. Thanks, guys, for coming and attending our first event. I'll see everybody next Tuesday, 3 p.m. for the resume building workshop. That's going to be a big one. That'll be super helpful. I firmly believe Shivani will be running that meeting. And yeah, see you there, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.